I married my best friend knowing I was in love with him. Knowing he didn't love me back. Knowing that for 5 years, I'd have to watch him exist in my space, sleep in my bed, live in my life, and never be mine. Not really. And I did it anyway. People ask me all the time, was the money worth it? $50 million split between two people after 5 years of marriage? And here's the truth. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I was selfish. Because being his fake wife was better than not being his wife at all. Because I thought 5 years of pretending was better than a lifetime of wondering, what if? His name is Min-jae. We've been best friends since we were 8 years old. And this is the story of how we almost destroyed each other because we were too scared to say 3 words.
Lennox Carter got the call at 2:47 in the morning. She knew before she even looked at the screen. There's a specific kind of dread that comes with a phone ringing in the dead hours, when the world is supposed to be still and safe. She grabbed it off her nightstand, Min-jae's name glowing in the darkness, and her stomach dropped. Jae. Her voice was rough with sleep. Silence. Then breathing. Heavy, uneven. She's gone. 2 words. That's all he could manage. Halmoni's gone. Lennox didn't remember getting dressed. Didn't remember the drive across the city to his apartment. But 20 minutes later she was standing outside his door, her hand hovering over the wood, and she could hear him inside. Not crying. Just silent. The kind of silence that's louder than screaming. She used her key. The one he'd given her when they were 22, half drunk on cheap wine, and promises to always be there for each other. She found him sitting on the floor of his living room, still in the clothes he'd worn to the hospital. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow, staring at nothing. Lennox sat down next to him, close enough that their shoulders touched, not saying anything. Because what do you say when the only person in someone's family who ever truly loved them is gone? They sat like that until the sun came up. 3 days later, they were at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Min-jae's parents sat across the table, stiff and formal in their black funeral clothes. His father kept checking his watch. His mother hadn't looked at Lennox once since she'd walked in. Seo-ha, Min-jae's cousin, sat at the far end, perfectly composed in a black Chanel suit, her expression unreadable. The lawyer, an older man with kind eyes and tired hands, cleared his throat. The estate of Kang Ok-soon is valued at approximately $52 million, including the architecture firm, real estate holdings, and liquid assets. Min-jae's father leaned forward. The entirety of the estate is left to Kang Min-jae. Seo-ha's hand tightened on the armrest. However, the lawyer continued, adjusting his glasses, there are conditions. Min-jae finally looked up. What conditions? Your grandmother's will states that you must be legally married within 6 months of her passing, or the entire estate will be donated to charity. The room went silent. Min-jae's mother made a small sound of disgust. His father's jaw tightened. Seo-ha's expression didn't change, but Lennox saw her pupils dilate, just slightly. That's it. Min-jae's voice was flat. Get married or lose everything? There's more, the lawyer said quietly. The marriage must last a minimum of 5 years. There will be quarterly check-ins to verify you're cohabiting and maintaining the marriage. If at any point the marriage is proven to be fraudulent, or if you divorce before the 5-year mark, the estate transfers to, he glanced at his notes, Kang Seo-ha. Seo-ha smiled. Small. Controlled. Like she'd just won something. Min-jae stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. Your grandmother was very specific, the lawyer said. She wanted to ensure you were settled. Happy. Happy. Min-jae laughed, bitter and sharp. She wanted to control me from beyond the grave. His mother stood. We'll contest it. You can try, the lawyer said, not unkindly. But I assure you, the will is ironclad. Your mother-in-law was very thorough. Min-jae walked out. Lennox followed. She found him in the parking garage, leaning against his car, head tilted back against the metal like he was trying to hold himself together through sheer force of will. Jae. He didn't look at her. $52 million. That's what my life is worth, apparently. That's the price tag on my freedom. Lennox leaned against the car next to him. Their arms brushed. You could just let it go? The money. The firm. Walk away. He turned to her then, and the look in his eyes made her chest ache. That firm was everything to her. She built it from nothing. If I lose it, if I let it get donated or handed to Seo-ha, who'll strip it for parts and sell it off. His voice cracked. I can't do that to her memory. So get married. He laughed. It sounded painful. To who, Knox? I'm not dating anyone. I haven't been in a serious relationship in 2 years. You think I can find someone, fall in love, and convince them to marry me in 6 months? Someone I'd trust enough to stay married to for 5 years. Lennox's heart was beating too fast. She knew what she was about to do. Knew it was reckless and dangerous, and probably the worst decision she'd ever make. But she looked at him. At Min-jae, her best friend since they were 8 years old. The boy who taught her how to ride a bike and held her hand at her father's funeral and made her coffee every Sunday morning for the past decade. And she couldn't stop herself. Marry me. He stared at her. What? Marry me. She turned to face him fully, her voice steadier than she felt. We've known each other for 21 years. We trust each other. We already spend most of our time together anyway. It's just paperwork. Knox. I need the money. The words came out before she could stop them. True, but not the whole truth. Never the whole truth. My mom's treatment. The clinical trial in Germany. It's $400,000 and insurance won't cover it. If we do this, if we split the estate after 5 years, I'd give you the money anyway, Min-jae said immediately. You don't have to marry me for it. I know. She did know. That's who he was. But taking money from him felt like charity. This felt like a choice. Like agency. Like she was doing something instead of just surviving. But this way it's fair. This way we're both getting something out of it. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was searching for something. 5 years, Knox. That's not nothing. I know. You'd have to live with me. My parents would be. He stopped. She knew what he wasn't saying. His parents, who'd made it abundantly clear over the years that Lennox wasn't the kind of woman they wanted their son associating with. Who spoke Korean around her deliberately, who forgot to include her in family photos, who looked through her like she was invisible. I can handle your parents, Lennox said. I've been handling them for 2 decades. And after 5 years, we get divorced. Walk away. Stay friends. She made it sound easy, like it wouldn't destroy her. Like she hadn't been in love with him since she was 16 years old. Like the idea of playing his wife for 5 years and then watching him find someone else wouldn't hollow her out completely. But she'd lived with loving him in silence for 13 years already. What was 5 more? Min-jae ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. This is crazy. Yeah. Completely insane. Absolutely. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And for just a second, just one heartbeat, she thought she saw something in his eyes. Something warm and desperate, and almost like. But then he blinked and it was gone. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, let's do it. They got married 3 weeks later in a courthouse that smelled like floor cleaner and stale coffee. Lennox wore a cream-colored dress she'd bought the night before at a department store, rushed and uncertain in the fluorescent lights. Min-jae wore a suit he already owned, the navy one he saved for client meetings. There was no music, no flowers, just a judge who'd performed 17 weddings that day and looked like she might fall asleep between vows. Do you, Kong Min-jae, take this woman? I do. Do you, Lennox Marie Carter, take this man? I do. The judge looked up. Rings. They'd forgotten rings. Min-jae pulled off the silver band he always wore on his right hand, the one Halmoni had given him for his 18th birthday, and slid it onto Lennox's finger. It was too big. She curled her hand into a fist to keep it from falling off. You may kiss the bride. Min-jae hesitated, just for a second. Then he leaned in and pressed his lips to hers, soft and careful, like he was afraid she'd break. Lennox tasted like the mint gum she'd been chewing nervously in the hallway. Min-jae's hand came up to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. And for 3 seconds, she let herself forget this was fake. Let herself believe this was real. That he'd chosen her because he loved her, not because he needed her. Then he pulled away, and reality crashed back in. The photographer, a bored clerk who doubled as the court photographer, snapped a single photo. Congratulations. Next, they signed the papers in silence. Lennox's hand shook when she wrote her name. She told herself it was nerves. It wasn't. Outside the courthouse, Min-jae stopped on the steps. So, we're married. Yeah. Lennox twisted the ring on her finger. It caught the light, silver and surreal. We're married. He cleared his throat. I should probably take you to dinner or something. Isn't that what newlyweds do? She forced a smile. We're not exactly traditional newlyweds, Jay. Still, he looked at her, and there was something in his expression she couldn't read. Something soft and sad. Let me buy my wife dinner. My wife. The words hit her like a fist to the sternum. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They went to the Korean barbecue place 3 blocks from his apartment. Their apartment now, she supposed. The waitress congratulated them when she saw the rings, and Min-jae didn't correct her. They grilled meat in silence, the sizzle and smoke filling the gaps where words should have been. Are you scared? Lennox asked finally. Min-jae looked up. Of what? This. Us. 5 years. He was quiet for a moment, turning a piece of beef on the grill. I'm scared I'll mess it up. That I'll do something that ruins our friendship and you'll hate me. I could never hate you. You say that now. He tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. Wait until you've lived with me for a year. I'm a nightmare to cohabit with. I leave my socks everywhere. I do this thing where I forget to close cabinets. It's going to drive you insane. Lennox laughed despite herself. I've stayed over at your place like 100 times, Jay. I know your sock situation. Yeah, but that was visiting. This is different. He met her eyes. This is real. No, Lennox thought. It's not. But she didn't say it. Instead, she raised her water glass. To 5 years of your socks on my floor. He clinked his glass against hers. To 5 years. They moved her into his apartment the following weekend. It didn't take long. She'd been renting a studio in a part of town she could barely afford, and most of her stuff fit in the back of Min-jae's car. 2 trips. That's all it took to erase her old life and fold it into his. She stood in the bedroom, their bedroom now, and stared at the king-sized bed. I can sleep on the couch, Min-jae said from the doorway. If you want. Lennox turned. It's your bed. It's our bed. Technically. He shoved his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I just don't want you to feel. We're adults, Jay. We can share a bed. She said it like it was no big deal. Like the thought of sleeping next to him every night for 5 years wasn't going to slowly kill her. It's fine. It wasn't fine. That first night, Lennox lay on her side of the bed, as far to the edge as physically possible without falling off. Min-jae was doing the same on his side. There was an entire continent of mattress between them. She could hear him breathing in the darkness. Slow. Steady. Knocks. His voice was quiet. Yeah. Thanks. For doing this. She closed her eyes. Go to sleep, Jay. But she didn't sleep. She lay awake and listened to him breathe and wondered how she was going to survive 5 years of this. If you're already feeling this tension, drop a comment and let me know. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Because this story is just getting started. The first family dinner happened 2 weeks later. Min-jae's mother insisted. To celebrate, she'd said over the phone, her voice clipped and cold. Lennox knew what she really meant. To inspect. To judge. To make it clear that Lennox still wasn't welcome, ring or no ring. They drove to his parents' house in silence. Min-jae's hands were tight on the steering wheel. We don't have to do this, Lennox said. Yes, we do. He glanced at her. If we don't show up, they'll know something's wrong. His parents lived in a massive house in the suburbs, all sharp angles and floor-to-ceiling windows. Seo-ha's car was already in the driveway. Of course she was there. She was always there. Min-jae's mother opened the door. She looked at Lennox for exactly 2 seconds before turning to her son. Min-jae, come in. Lennox followed. She wasn't greeted. The dining room table was set for 5. Min-jae's father sat at the head, reading something on his phone. Seo-ha was already seated, her smile sharp and knowing. Congratulations, she said, her voice honey-sweet. On the wedding. Thank you, Min-jae said tightly. So sudden, though. Seo-ha tilted her head. You weren't even dating, were you? We've known each other our whole lives, Lennox said evenly. We didn't need to date. How modern, Seo-ha murmured. Dinner was brutal. Min-jae's parents spoke Korean the entire time. Deliberately, Lennox was sure. She caught Min-jae's name. Halmoni's name. Once, she heard Seo-ha laugh at something his mother said, and Min-jae's jaw tightened. What are they saying? Lennox asked quietly. Min-jae looked at her. Then at his parents. Nothing important. But she knew he was lying. After dinner, Lennox escaped to the bathroom. She stared at herself in the mirror and tried to remember why she'd agreed to this. Because you love him, a voice whispered. Because you'd do anything for him. When she came back out, Seo-ha was waiting in the hallway. Lennox. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Can we talk? Sure. Seo-ha glanced toward the dining room, then back to Lennox. I just want to make sure you understand what you're getting into. I'm married to Min-jae. I think I understand. Do you? Seo-ha stepped closer. Because this family, they're never going to accept you. You know that, right? You'll always be the outsider. The charity case he married out of desperation. Lennox's hands curled into fists. Is there a point to this? Just a friendly warning. Seo-ha's smile widened. 5 years is a long time to feel unwelcome in your own life. I'd hate to see you get hurt. She walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Min-jae found Lennox in the hallway a moment later. You okay? Fine, she lied. He didn't believe her. She could tell, but he didn't push. On the drive home, Lennox stared out the window and felt the weight of 5 years pressing down on her chest. I'm sorry, Min-jae said quietly. For what? For them. For he exhaled. For all of it. It's not your fault. It feels like it is. Lennox looked at him, his profile in the dim glow of streetlights, the tension in his shoulders, the guilt etched into every line of his face. Jay, she said softly, I'm not going anywhere. He glanced at her, just for a second, and something in his expression cracked. I know, he said, but he sounded like he didn't believe it. 3 months into the marriage, Lennox woke up to the smell of coffee. Not just any coffee. Her coffee. 3 sugars, oat milk, cinnamon on top. She found Min-jae in the kitchen, already dressed for work, 2 mugs on the counter. Morning, he said without looking up. You made my coffee. I always make your coffee. He slid the mug toward her. Have I not been making your coffee? No, you have. She wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic. Thank you. He finally looked at her, and something softened in his expression. You don't have to thank me every time, Knox. We're married. Making you coffee is literally the least I can do. Married. The word still felt foreign in her mouth, like trying on someone else's clothes. It fit, technically, but it didn't feel right. She watched him move around the kitchen, easy and familiar, grabbing his keys and his messenger bag. This was their routine now. He made coffee. She pretended not to notice how domestic it felt, how much it hurt. I've got a site visit today, he said, checking his phone. Probably won't be back until late. There's leftover japchae in the fridge if you want it for dinner. Okay. He paused at the door. Oh, and my mom called. She wants us to come to some charity thing next weekend. I told her we'd think about it. Jay, you know I hate those things. I know. But if we don't show up, he sighed. She'll make it a whole thing. Lennox took a sip of her coffee. Perfect as always. Fine. But you owe me. Add it to my tab. He smiled, that soft, crooked smile that made her chest ache, and left. The apartment felt too quiet after he was gone. Too big. Lennox sat at the kitchen counter and stared at the second coffee mug, the one he'd drunk from, still sitting where he'd left it. She reached out and traced the rim with her finger. This was the hardest part. Not the fake smiles at family dinners or the suspicious looks from Seo-ha. It was this. The small intimacies. The coffee and the shared bathroom and the way he'd started saying we instead of I. The way it felt so much like a real marriage that sometimes she forgot it wasn't. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. How's married life, baby? Lennox typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on. Good. Really good. Another lie. She was getting good at those. That night, Min-jae came home at almost midnight. Lennox was on the couch, laptop balanced on her knees, trying to finish a grant proposal that was due in the morning. She heard his keys in the door and looked up. He looked exhausted. Tie loosened, hair a mess, dark circles under his eyes. Rough day? She asked. Client changed their mind about the entire design. Again, he dropped his bag by the door and collapsed onto the couch next to her. Close enough that their thighs touched. I'm starting to think architecture was a terrible career choice. You love architecture. I love the idea of architecture. The reality is bureaucracy and building codes and clients who don't know what they want. He tilted his head back against the cushions. What are you working on? Grant proposal. Trying to fund my research for next year. How's it going? It's going. She closed the laptop. You want food? I can heat up the japchae. Knox, it's midnight. You don't have to. I'm hungry anyway. She stood before he could argue. Come on. They ate japchae standing at the kitchen counter, shoulders brushing, talking about nothing. His terrible client. Her advisor, who kept pushing back her thesis defense. The new coffee shop that opened down the street. Normal things. Married things. Can I ask you something? Min-jae said suddenly. Lennox looked up. Yeah. Do you ever, he hesitated. Do you ever regret this? Marrying me. Her heart stopped. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Sometimes I look at you and I think about how you're 29 years old and you're stuck in a fake marriage with your best friend instead of out there actually dating and falling in love, and he ran a hand through his hair. I feel like I'm stealing your life from you. Jay. She put down her fork. You're not stealing anything. I chose this. I chose you. Because you needed the money. That's not the only reason. The words came out before she could stop them. Too honest. Too revealing. He stared at her. What's the other reason? Because I love you. Because I've loved you since I was 16 years old, and I would rather spend 5 years pretending to be your wife than spend the rest of my life watching you be someone else's husband. But she didn't say that. Instead, she smiled and said, because you make really good coffee. He laughed, soft and surprised, and the tension broke. But something in his eyes lingered. Something that looked almost like disappointment. The charity gala the following weekend was exactly as miserable as Lennox expected. She wore a black dress Min-jae had never seen before. Simple, elegant, the kind of dress that cost 3 months of her old rent. He'd insisted on buying it for her. You're a Kong now, he'd said. You have to look the part. She hated how much she liked hearing him say it. You're a Kong now. The event was packed with Seoul's elite. Old money and new money, and people who'd never worried about money at all. Min-jae's parents were holding court near the bar, his mother draped in diamonds that probably cost more than Lennox's entire education. Seo-ha was there too, stunning in red, her arm linked with some executive Lennox didn't recognize. Breathe, Min-jae murmured in her ear. His hand was on the small of her back, warm and steady. We'll stay an hour. 2 tops. Your mother's been glaring at me since we walked in. My mother glares at everyone. It's her resting face. He guided her toward the bar. Come on, let's get you a drink. They made it exactly 12 minutes before Min-jae's mother found them. Min-jae. She didn't acknowledge Lennox. Just looked at her son with that tight, controlled expression that meant she was angry. Then she said something in Korean, fast and sharp. Min-jae's jaw tightened. He responded in Korean, his voice low. His mother's eyes flicked to Lennox for just a second before turning back to Min-jae. Another rapid string of Korean. In English, Iyama, Min-jae said firmly. Lennox is my wife. She deserves to understand what we're saying. His mother's smile was cold. I was simply saying that it's a shame you couldn't bring a proper date to these things. Someone who actually fits. The words hit like a slap. Lennox felt Min-jae tense beside her. Careful, he said quietly. Dangerously. That's my wife you're talking about. Your wife. His mother laughed, bitter and sharp. For now. She walked away before either of them could respond. Lennox exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking. She hid them behind her back. Knox. I need some air. She turned and walked toward the balcony before he could stop her. Outside, the city stretched out below her, all glittering lights and distant noise. She gripped the railing and tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest. 5 years. She had 5 years of this. She's wrong, you know. Lennox turned. Seo-ha was standing in the doorway, champagne glass in hand, looking infuriatingly composed. I don't want to do this with you right now, Lennox said. I'm not here to fight. Seo-ha walked closer, leaning against the railing beside her. I'm here to offer you some advice. I don't need your advice. You do, though. Seo-ha took a sip of her champagne. Because you're in love with him. And he has no idea. Lennox's blood went cold. I don't know what you're. Please. I've watched you two for years. The way you look at him when he's not paying attention. The way you laugh at his jokes even when they're not funny. The way you agreed to this insane marriage without a second thought. Seo-ha smiled. You're in love with Min-jae, and it's going to destroy you. Why do you care? I don't. Seo-ha's smile sharpened. But I do care about that $52 million. And I need you to understand something. Min-jae is never going to love you back. You're his best friend. His safety net. But you're not what he wants. You'll never be what he wants. You don't know that. Don't I? Seo-ha tilted her head. He married you out of desperation, Lennox. Not love. And when these 5 years are up, he's going to walk away and find someone his family actually approves of. Someone who fits. And you're going to be left with a broken heart and a divorce settlement. Get away from me. I'm trying to help you. Seo-ha's voice was almost kind. Almost. Save yourself the pain. Walk away now. The marriage hasn't even lasted a year. You could claim irreconcilable differences. I'll get the estate. Min-jae will get his freedom. And you? You won't have to spend the next 4 years watching him not fall in love with you. I'm not walking away. Then you're a fool. Seoha finished her champagne and set the glass down on the railing. But I suppose I should thank you. You're making this easier for me. She left. Lennox stayed on the balcony and stared at the city and tried not to cry. When Min-jae found her 20 minutes later, she'd composed herself. Mostly. There you are. He looked worried. Are you okay? Fine. You're lying. Jay, was it my mother? Because I swear to God, I'm going to. It wasn't your mother. Technically true. I just needed a minute. He studied her face, his expression unreadable. Then he shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. You're freezing. She was. She hadn't noticed. The jacket smelled like him, cologne and laundry detergent, and something uniquely Min-jae. She pulled it tighter around herself. Can we go home? She asked quietly. Yeah, of course. He offered her his arm. Come on. They left without saying goodbye to anyone. In the car, Min-jae turned on the heat and didn't ask questions. He just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console. Close enough that Lennox could have reached out and touched it if she'd been brave enough. If you're feeling this tension too, hit that like button. Because this is about to get so much worse. Back at the apartment, Lennox went straight to the bedroom and started taking off her jewelry. Min-jae followed, loosening his tie. I'm sorry, he said. You don't have to keep apologizing for your family. Yeah, I do. He sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped. Because they're awful to you. They've always been awful to you. And I keep dragging you into these situations anyway. Lennox turned to face him. I knew what I was signing up for when I married you. Did you, though? Because I'm starting to think I didn't. He looked up at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. Something desperate. I thought this would be easy. That we'd just live together and pretend for 5 years, and then go back to normal. But it's not easy, Knox. It's... What? It's killing me. Her breath caught. What are you talking about? He stood up, running both hands through his hair. Forget it. I'm just tired. Long day. Jay, I'm going to take a shower. He grabbed clothes from the dresser and headed for the bathroom, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Lennox stood there in her expensive dress and her fake wedding ring and wondered what the hell he'd meant. What was killing him? The marriage? Living with her? Pretending? Or something else? She changed into pajamas and was in bed by the time he came out, the lights already off. She felt the mattress dip as he got in on his side, heard him settle under the covers. The space between them felt infinite. Knox. His voice was soft in the darkness. Yeah. If you ever want out, if this gets too hard, you can tell me. We'll figure something out. Her throat tightened. I don't want out. Okay. A pause. Okay. She waited for him to say something else. But he didn't. Eventually, his breathing evened out, and she knew he was asleep. Lennox lay awake and stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about Seoha's words. Try not to think about the fact that Min-jae had just offered her an escape route. Try not to think about why that hurt more than anything his mother had said. 6 months into the marriage, things shifted. It started small. Min-jae began working later. Coming home after Lennox was already in bed. They stopped eating breakfast together. Stopped talking about their days. The apartment that had felt too intimate suddenly felt cold and empty. Lennox told herself it was normal. People got busy. Marriages went through phases. This didn't mean anything. But then she walked into the living room one night and found Min-jae on the phone, speaking quietly in Korean. He didn't notice her at first. She caught fragments, his laugh, soft and genuine in a way she hadn't heard in weeks. Then he looked up, saw her, and his expression shuddered. I have to go, he said into the phone. Yeah, talk later. He hung up. Who was that? Lennox asked, trying to sound casual. Just a friend. What friend? No one you know. He stood up, avoiding her eyes. I'm going to bed. Long day tomorrow. He left her standing there, and something in her chest cracked. The next morning, Lennox woke up alone. Min-jae's side of the bed was already cold. No coffee on the counter. No note. Nothing. She checked her phone. One text, sent at 6 a.m. Early meeting. Don't wait up tonight. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Lennox sat at the kitchen counter in the too quiet apartment and felt the first real spike of fear. Because she knew what this was. She'd seen it before in a dozen relationships that circled the drain. The distance. The late nights. The phone calls he didn't want her to hear. Seoha's words echoed in her head. He's never going to love you back. No. She pushed the thought away. This was Min-jae. Her best friend. He wouldn't. But he would. Because this was fake. Because she was convenient. Because he'd never promised her anything except 5 years and a divorce. She went to class, came home, made dinner, ate alone, went to bed alone. Min-jae came home at midnight. She pretended to be asleep. This became their new normal. Days bleeding into weeks. Polite conversations over breakfast when they bothered to eat together. Separate schedules. Separate lives. They were roommates who happened to be married. Nothing more. 2 weeks later, Lennox was at the university library when she got a text from an unknown number. You should ask Min-jae where he was last Thursday night. Her hands went numb. Another text. Ask him about G1. She stared at the screen. Then, against every instinct screaming at her to stop, she typed, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. Someone who thought you deserved to know the truth. Lennox called Min-jae. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Same thing. She grabbed her things and drove home, her heart hammering against her ribs. The apartment was dark when she got there. Empty. She sat on the couch and waited. He came home an hour later. She heard his keys, the door opening, his footsteps in the entryway. Knocks. He sounded surprised. I thought you had a late class. Who's G1? He froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. What? G1. Who is she? Min-jae's expression went carefully blank. Where did you hear that name? Does it matter? Lennox stood up. Just tell me who she is. He sighed, setting his bag down. She's a colleague. We've been working on a project together. A project? Yes. Is that who you've been with? All these late nights. Knox. Are you sleeping with her? The question hung in the air between them, sharp and ugly. No. Min-jae looked at her like she'd slapped him. Jesus, Knox. No. I would never. Then why are you lying to me? I'm not. You are. Her voice cracked. You've been avoiding me for weeks. Late nights, mysterious phone calls, and now some woman I've never heard of is apparently taking up all your time. What am I supposed to think? You're supposed to trust me. I did trust you. I do trust you. But you're shutting me out, and I don't know why. Min-jae closed his eyes. It's complicated. Then uncomplicated. I can't. Why not? Because, he stopped. Opened his eyes. Because it's easier this way. Easier for who? For both of us. Lennox stared at him. I don't understand. I know. He picked up his bag. I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight. Give us both some space. Jay, wait. But he was already walking toward the door. I'm not having an affair, he said quietly, his back to her. G1 is just a colleague. But I can't do this right now. I can't explain. I'm sorry. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Lennox stood in the empty apartment and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Because this felt like the beginning of the end. Min-jae didn't come home the next day, or the day after that. Lennox called him 17 times. Every call went to voicemail. She texted. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished. On the third day, she called his office. His assistant said he'd taken a few personal days. No, she didn't know where he was. No, she couldn't give out that information. Lennox sat in their apartment. His apartment, really, it had never truly been hers, and tried not to fall apart. Her mind kept replaying that last conversation. The way he'd looked at her. The exhaustion in his voice. I can't do this right now. She checked her phone obsessively. Nothing. On the fourth day, someone knocked on the door. Lennox practically ran to open it, hoping. Seoha stood in the hallway, perfectly composed in a white pantsuit, holding a folder. What do you want? Lennox's voice was flat. Can I come in? No. Seoha sighed. Fine. I'll be quick. She held up the folder. These are photos. From last Thursday night. Min-jae and G1 at a restaurant. Very cozy. Very intimate. Lennox's stomach dropped. You sent those texts. I did you a favor. You deserve to know. Seoha's expression was almost sympathetic. Almost. He's been seeing her for 2 months, Lennox. Every late night. Every mysterious phone call. It was her. He said they're colleagues. Is that what you're going to tell yourself? That it's innocent? Seoha tilted her head. Look at the photos. Then tell me it's nothing. Get out. I'm trying to help you. No, you're not. You want me to leave him so you can contest the will and take everything. That's all you've ever wanted. Lennox's hands were shaking with rage. So take your fake sympathy and your photos and get the hell away from me. Seoha's mask slipped. Just for a second, Lennox saw the fury underneath. You're going to lose him anyway. Whether it's now or in 4 years. He was never yours to keep. She left the folder on the floor and walked away. Lennox stared at it for a long moment. Then she picked it up and went inside. The photos were damning. Min-jae and a woman Lennox didn't recognize. Beautiful, Korean. Exactly the kind of woman his parents would approve of, sitting at a corner table. His hand on hers. Her laughing at something he said. Another photo of them leaving together, his arm around her shoulders. Lennox felt sick. She grabbed her phone and called him again. This time, he answered. Knox. Where are you? Silence. Jay, where the hell are you? I'm at a hotel. The Marriott downtown. Room number. Knox, I don't think. Room number. Now. He told her. She hung up, grabbed her keys, and drove. She banged on his hotel room door at 9 p.m., still holding the folder. He opened it looking like he hadn't slept in days. Hair disheveled, wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes. Explain these. She shoved the folder at him. Min-jae looked at the photos. His expression went carefully neutral. Where did you get these? Huh? She's been following you. Having you followed, I don't know. She's building a case to prove our marriage is fake. Lennox's voice was shaking. So explain to me why there are photos of you on what looks very much like a date with another woman. It wasn't a date. It looks like a date, Jay. You're holding her hand. She was upset. I was comforting her. And leaving with your arm around her? That's comforting. Min-jae closed his eyes. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been cheating on me. We're not actually married, Knox. The words exploded out of him. Not really. This is fake, remember? A business arrangement. You said it yourself. It's just paperwork. The words hit her like a physical blow. Is that what you think? That this doesn't count? That I don't? She stopped herself. Too close. Too honest. That you don't what? Nothing. Forget it. No. Say it. He stepped closer. What were you going to say? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Lennox looked at him, really looked at him, at the exhaustion etched into every line of his face, the pain in his eyes, the way his hands were clenched into fists at his sides like he was physically holding himself back from something. Why have you been avoiding me? She asked quietly. Because, he stopped. Started again. Because being around you is torture. Her breath caught. What? Every morning, making your coffee. Every night, lying next to you in bed. Every time you smile at me or laugh at my terrible jokes or just exist in my space. It's torture, Knox. Because I want, he cut himself off. It doesn't matter what I want. Tell me. Her heart was hammering. Tell me what you want. I can't. Why not? Because you're my best friend, and this is supposed to be fake, and if I tell you the truth, I'll ruin everything. His voice broke on the last word. I'll ruin us. Jay. She took a step closer. They were inches apart now. She could see the pulse jumping in his throat. What truth? He looked at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, like a confession, I'm in love with you. The world stopped. I've been in love with you since we were 17 years old, he continued, the words spilling out like he couldn't stop them. That night at senior prom, when you laughed so hard you snorted, and then got embarrassed and tried to pretend it didn't happen. That's when I knew. And I've been in love with you every day since. Lennox couldn't breathe. I asked you to marry me because I'm selfish, Min-jae said. Because the idea of you being my wife, even if it was fake, even if it was temporary, I couldn't pass it up. I thought I could handle it. Thought I could pretend for 5 years and then let you go. But I can't, Knox. I can't do this anymore. I can't wake up next to you every morning and pretend I don't want to kiss you. Can't watch you exist in my space and not want you to stay forever. So you left, Lennox whispered. So I left. Because staying was killing me. He laughed, bitter and broken. And G1, she's my therapist. I've been seeing her twice a week trying to figure out how to survive being married to someone I love who doesn't love me back. Your therapist? Yeah. Not your girlfriend. God, no. He looked horrified. Knox, I would never. I love you. Min-jae froze. What? I love you. The words felt like breathing. Like something she'd been holding in for so long that letting them out was physically painful. I've loved you since I was 16. That day you helped me study for the SATs and you made me laugh so hard I forgot I was stressed. And you made everything better. You always make everything better. He stared at her. You're lying. I'm not. You have to be. Because if you're not lying, that means... He stopped, his eyes searching hers desperately. That means we've wasted 13 years. Yeah. Lennox said softly. We have. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Min-jae. I've always loved you. He kissed her. Not like at the courthouse. Careful and performative. This was desperate and raw and real. His hands cupped her face, tilting her head back, and she grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him closer. 13 years of want poured into one kiss. 13 years of almost, and not quite, and what if. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. I'm an idiot, Min-jae said. Yeah, you really are. We could have had this the whole time. We have it now. Lennox's hands were still fisted in his shirt. She didn't want to let go. Didn't think she could. That's what matters. He kissed her again. Softer this time. Slower. Like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, the taste of her, the way she fit against him. Come home, Lennox whispered against his lips. Please come home. Okay. He pressed his forehead to hers. Okay. If you've made it this far, drop a comment telling me you believe in second chances. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story isn't over. They went home together. Min-jae drove because Lennox's hands were shaking too much to grip the wheel. In the apartment, they stood in the living room, suddenly uncertain. So Min-jae said, "What now?" "I don't know." Lennox laughed, slightly hysterical. "I didn't think past the confession part. We could." He gestured vaguely toward the bedroom, then immediately looked mortified. "Sorry. I didn't mean." "Jay." She took his hand. "We've been married for 8 months. I think we can figure this out." They figured it out. Hours later, Lennox lay in bed with Min-jae's arm wrapped around her waist, his chest pressed against her back, his breath warm on her neck. This was different from all the nights before. No invisible wall between them. No pretending. Just them. "I need to tell you something," Min-jae said quietly. "If it's about Ji-won again, I swear. It's about Halmoni." Lennox turned in his arms to face him. "What about her?" "The day before she died, she called me to the hospital. Alone." His thumb traced patterns on her hip. "She told me she was changing her will. That she was going to make it so I had to get married to inherit." "She told you?" "Yeah." "And I asked her why. Why would she do that?" Min-jae's eyes were soft in the darkness. "You know what she said?" "What?" "She said, 'Because you're a coward, Min-jae. You've been in love with that girl since you were children and you've never told her. So I'm going to force you to marry her. And maybe, if you're lucky, you'll stop being a coward long enough to tell her the truth.'" Lennox's breath caught. She knew. She always knew. The will wasn't about the money or the firm. It was about us. He smiled, sad and fond. "She orchestrated this whole thing to get us together." "That manipulative," Lennox laughed despite herself. "I can't believe her. I can't. That was so Halmoni." Min-jae pulled her closer. "She told me that if I let you go, if I let these 5 years pass without telling you how I felt, she'd haunt me forever." Smart woman. The smartest. He kissed her forehead. "I miss her. I miss her too." They lay in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lennox said, "What about Seo-ha? She's not going to stop trying to prove we're faking this." "Let her try? We're not faking anything anymore." Min-jae's arm tightened around her. "Besides, we still have 4 years left on the marriage contract. 4 years to make this real. Make it count." "For years," Lennox repeated. And then we renew our vows. For real this time. With flowers and music and everyone we love watching. And I'll marry you again, Knox. Every day for the rest of my life, if you'll let me." She kissed him. Long and slow and full of promise. "Yeah. Okay. I can work with that." 3 months later, Seo-ha showed up at the estate lawyer's office with evidence. Photos, testimonies from witnesses, a whole presentation about how the marriage was fraudulent. The lawyer listened patiently. Then he pulled out a folder of his own. "Ms. Kong, I appreciate your diligence. However, I have quarterly reports from the past 11 months showing that Mr. Kong and Mrs. Kong Carter are cohabiting, maintaining joint accounts, and by all observable measures, conducting themselves as a married couple." He slid the folder across the desk. "Additionally, Mrs. Kong Carter is currently 12 weeks pregnant. So unless you have evidence suggesting they've been faking an entire pregnancy, I'm afraid your case doesn't hold water." Seo-ha's face went white. "Pregnant? Yes. Congratulations are in order, I believe." The lawyer's smile was polite and final. "Now, if there's nothing else, I have other appointments." Seo-ha stood up, her hands shaking. She looked at Min-jae, then at Lennox, and for just a moment, her mask cracked completely. Rage and desperation and defeat all rolled into one expression. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes," Min-jae said calmly, his hand finding Lennox's under the table. "It is." Seoha left. The door closed behind her with a sharp click. The lawyer leaned back in his chair. "Between you and me? I think Mrs. Kang Ok-soon would be very pleased with how this turned out." Lennox squeezed Min-jae's hand. "Yeah, I think she would be too." 2 years later, Lennox stood in their bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test, their second child on the way. Min-jae was at a site visit, wouldn't be home for another hour. She took a photo of the test and texted it to him with the caption, "Looks like we're doing this again." His response came immediately, "Best news all day. I love you." "Love you too," she typed back. "Even though you leave your socks everywhere. That's why you married me. Admit it. I married you for the coffee." "Liar." She smiled and set the phone down. From the living room, she could hear their daughter, 16 months old, all chubby cheeks and Min-jae's smile, babbling at her toys. 5 years had passed since that courthouse wedding. 5 years since she'd said, "I do," while her heart broke and mended simultaneously. They'd renewed their vows last month in a small ceremony with just their closest friends and Lennox's mother, who was healthy now, in remission, glowing with pride. Min-jae's parents hadn't come, but that was okay. They'd built their own family, their own life, and it was beautiful. The door opened. Min-jae's voice called out, "I'm home." Their daughter squealed and toddled toward him as fast as her little legs could carry her. Lennox heard him scoop her up, heard her delighted giggles, heard him say, "Where's Mommy? Is Mommy hiding from us?" Lennox walked into the living room. Min-jae looked up, their daughter perched on his hip, and his entire face lit up. "Hi," she said. "Hi." He crossed to her and kissed her, soft and easy and familiar. "So, baby number 2. You're not freaking out. Are you kidding?" "I'm thrilled." He shifted their daughter to his other hip and wrapped his free arm around Lennox's waist. "I get to do this all over again with you. That's all I've ever wanted." "Really?" "Because I remember you saying parenthood was terrifying." "It is terrifying, but it's also..." He looked at their daughter, then at Lennox, and something achingly tender crossed his face. "It's everything." Later that night, after their daughter was asleep and they were curled up on the couch together, Lennox said, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't done this? If I'd said no to your proposal?" "All the time," Min-jae admitted. "I think about how I might have lost you. How I might have spent my whole life wondering what if. But we didn't. No, we didn't." He pulled her closer. "We got lucky, Knox. We got our second chance. Third chance, technically. Fourth if you count." He kissed her to shut her up. She laughed against his mouth and kissed him back. "I love you," he said. "Even though you steal all the blankets and talk in your sleep and refuse to admit when you're wrong about directions. I love you too. Even though you leave your socks everywhere and make terrible jokes and cry during every Pixar movie. That's a completely normal human response to Pixar movies." "Uh-huh." He kissed her again, and she thought about how Moni, who'd seen what they couldn't, who'd loved them enough to force them together, who'd known, somehow, that they just needed a push. "Thank you," Lennox whispered. "For what?" "For asking me to marry you. For being brave enough to tell me the truth. For..." She gestured around them. At the apartment that was theirs now, full of photos and toys and evidence of the life they'd built. "For all of this. Thank you for saying yes." Min-jae's voice was soft. "Thank you for loving me even when I was too stupid to see it." "Always," Lennox said. "I'll always love you." And she meant it. Every word. Because this messy, complicated, beautiful thing they'd built from a fake marriage and unspoken feelings and 13 years of almosts. This was real. This was forever. This was everything. If you made it to the end, thank you for being here. Drop a comment and tell me, would you marry your best friend for $50 million? And if this story hit you in the feels, subscribe because there are more stories coming that will absolutely wreck you in the best way. Until next time, remember that the best love stories are the ones where you almost miss each other. But you don't. You choose each other. Every single day. This was Lennox and Min-jae's story. And it started with a funeral. But it didn't end there. It never really ends when you find the person who was always meant to be yours.